People that care for each other are going to hurt each other. Nobody has to like that. But when you're in an intimate relationship, you're going to sooner or later hurt each other. In fact, more strongly, there's no way you're going to be able to avoid hurting each other. We can either try to avoid that thinking or we can address it directly. And I'm encouraging you this morning to look at this in the eye and think about what can you do when one of you hurts the other when that happens in your relationship. We're not talking about deliberate hurt, although when people get angry enough, they will say things or do things that they're sorry about later. Hurt is a natural reaction. It's an anxious reaction, really. Somebody's gotten too close to something. Somebody has threatened something about myself, a belief in me, how I'm seen, what I said, whatever it is. And in that process, I got hurt. Well, hurt is like getting injured in any way. Same thing when you're physically hurt. You tend to pull back. You tend to want space. You tend to kind of retreat and lick your wounds. Famous phrase. Some of that comes out of our histories. How did we see conflict and injury happen in our families? Some of that happens perhaps from earlier relationships we've been in, ranging from not great to awful and even physically abusive. We naturally move away from a history of hurt, especially if we're not sure what to do with it. But the problem is unaddressed hurt festers. It writhes around in our souls. We don't really let it go. We can push it aside. A lot of us do. We try to pretend that nothing happened or that we're okay. But anyone watching this video knows sooner or later it shows up. It's going to demand to be addressed. There's other problems. It spills over into other parts of our relationship, things that aren't directly affected by that hurt. And if we're not careful, we can begin avoiding that topic, but in the long-term avoiding, we're actually damaging the relationship. Anytime we're hurt and we wall it away, it's like walling away anxiety. It's the elephant in the room. And if you're not careful, you'll stumble into it. Somebody will accidentally say something. A moment will come, and here it is, back again, undealt with, but demanding attention. So we can't do anything about it if we don't address it. So what do we do? Well, I'll go back to one of my favorite truths about communication in couples. The first thing we have to do is get listened to. We're going to have to air our grievance. We're going to have to air our hurt. That doesn't mean we come at it necessarily hammer and tongs. It just means we say what's on our mind. We describe what's happened to us, and our partner summarizes back what they've heard. Reflective listening. We stay with that until I, the hurt person, feel heard. It's the first and most important step. Now, the other person might not want to hear it. That's probably a given. The other person might have their own reactions. But the mission is to stay with the conversation until you feel like you've been heard about your hurt. Now, lots of things can happen from there. The great part about this first step is it will always, almost always, make us less defensive. If we don't feel like we're any less defensive, probably we have to do it again or take a break and come back to it. But if we feel genuinely heard, it opens the doors to lots of other things, like listening to them. Maybe they owe you an apology. Maybe they were in a bad place themselves and never talked about it. There's room for discussion, and that can only be healthy for the relationship, especially once your hurt has been heard. Couple of ground rules here. Stay away from attacking and stay away from defending. My talking about my hurt is me talking about my hurt. I don't have to defend necessarily why I was hurt, and the other person really should stay away from defending why it happened. Explaining might be useful, or it might not. Get heard. Get yourself in a place where you can talk about it. And maybe give them a moment. Maybe give each other a moment. Sometimes getting that verbalized or hearing it said from your partner might mean that you need to step back and take a break. That's okay. Come back to it just as quickly as you can. The point is, once it's aired, once it's out and discussed and you feel listened to, it has a chance to begin to heal. Other things, one more thing really, keep it to that issue. The temptation is once you feel heard, other issues want to show up and be addressed too. That's okay, but probably for these first attempts, keep it to just getting listened to about the hurt and then processing that and moving on and saving other stuff for another practice. What's wrong with doing this more than once? And it does take practice. It's very much about something, a skill that you build over time. Expect at the beginning to make mistakes, expect to try to talk about the hurt, and now suddenly you're exploding because you're so upset. Be patient with yourself and please be patient with your partner. You both have a learning curve to move through as you learn to process hurt. Thanks.